Forgive me. The technical difficulties. It seems that YouTube, maybe YouTube has, did they change a bunch of stuff while I was gone? Seems like everything is not working. It may have to do with my phone. I broke my I broke my phone on a motorcycle crash, and getting a new phone, reloading everything. Well, you know how it is. But I do have Signal up and running. So one step at a time. Tuesday morning, very cold. My goodness. I went up again last night, and I found the fire. I was running around yesterday. I uploaded a video for members kind of showing that. Ran around yesterday all morning trying to find it, just to realize I was on the wrong side of the ridge, or on the opposite of where the fire was at. But looking at it this morning, it seems to be laying down. They have a crew up there working on it. Must be a hand crew. So not too big a concern. You can always tell how concerned local fire authorities are by the amount of resources they put on things. When they start calling in aviation, you know that they're very worried. And we didn't see any of that. It's got a lot to do with the time of year. The humidity is very high. The temperature is very low. It's been raining off and on, and it's just not a big concern. So had this be a little smoker next month, we would have an entirely different response. Goodness, we have a new member from Dustin Pierre. Welcome. Shout out to you. Jack and I are getting ready for as I said yesterday, getting ready for his pack test. Not much to prepare for. If he's not ready for it, he's never going to be ready. So we're going to go in, get him a set of boots as soon as we get back from VidCon. Now, FYI, gentlemen, we will not be live streaming. Today will be the last day of the week. So Mrs. W and I are getting up early, getting on a plane, flying down to California. We'll be down at VidCon through the weekend. So I'll probably upload some videos to you guys, just some stuff on my phone, what's going on. We've got a bunch of conferences scheduled, a bunch of meetings scheduled. So it's going to be pretty busy. And to be honest with you, it's going to be really nice to have a couple days off with Mrs. W. As fun as it is to have the whole family on vacation in a small hotel room, when you're mixing in a 5.5-year-old, an 18-year-old, all in one room, well, it's a lot. So Mrs. W and I are looking forward to that. Maybe have a couple nice dinners. Avoid the craziness. I don't really dig going down to California. If it wasn't for this particular thing, I probably wouldn't go. Well, I know I wouldn't go. But I was talking to Overton about this yesterday. He said, why in the world are you going down to California of all places? Well, it's pretty isolated. VidCon is, there's a lot of security there. You have to have a ticket to get in. It's going to be just in and out from the hotel room right to conference and back. All right, let me jump in here, open up my apps. Nothing but the best production around here, gentlemen. So I've been working on something this morning. Oh, goodness. Need to get my chat open right here. I've been working on something this morning. There's a road that just north of here that is an old road to a quarry that used to be way up high on Mount Fuji. Now, it's been turned into kind of a recreational thing, but it's pretty well kept, and it's actually the highest road that I can get access to. There may be a higher one around the other side, meaning the elevation on the Indian side of the land, but that's not open to the public. But over here, it goes way up there. And it's one of my favorite roads to ride on. You just gain crazy elevation, and we've been kind of I'm getting ready to put together a little kind of a Strava type of deal with the local the war band as timed events, how fast you can get up from a certain point to the bridge. So I was messing around with my drone, and I've enjoyed doing motorcycle videos in the past. And I've taken my drone and try to show you guys some of the amazing places that we have up north of here. but the technology just hasn't been there. I literally have a drone graveyard from all of the ones that I've crashed over the years. My dream as a content creator has been to get to the point where you could have a camera with a microphone that would just hover around like Starship Troopers, right? Just kind of float around, follow you around. Just imagine the time that would free up. You could just be able to go along and go through your day, whatever you're doing, and to share all these things without all the aggravation of the tripod and setting up shots and this sort of thing. But that technology is not there. And I was hoping, when I first kind of got into the drone world, hoping that DJI would be able to figure that out with the follow me features. Well, I went through 3 different drones trying follow me features, and all of them pretty much ended up in the drone crashing into stuff, and it just was not effective. And working with drones is extremely aggravating because you have a battery that is running down. It's running down. And when you're a one-man band, it's one thing to have a drone. If I was a dedicated videographer and that was my job to get drone footage and that's all that I would have to do, it would be amazing. It would be an incredible technology. You could be able to focus on it. But when you're trying to do everything and you get into a situation where you're in the forest with trees and rocks and obstacles, trying to ride in high speed and then do all this while flying a drone and trying to get it to connect to you and follow you around, and you have this vision of this amazing video production, right? Which never works out. So I've kind of soured on drones over the years and kind of put them away and don't use them too much. I might break them out once in a while. I got to thinking today, like, I really want to share this super climb up to the top of Fuji. Just the vistas and it's amazing. You guys would really enjoy seeing it, and it's very fast. I wonder if the drone technology is there yet. So I got my drone out, and I noticed that it needed a whole bunch of updates. So I updated everything, and it took probably 2 hours this morning. Goodness, going through all that stuff. Got it all up to date. Tried it. It's pretty incredible. It's absolutely incredible. I locked it onto myself, and it seems to be able to rotate, follow around. So Lord willing, this afternoon on our afternoon ride, I'm going to bring it along, and hopefully, if I can ride fast enough, we might be able to get the whole thing on one battery, where this thing will kind of fly around and stay really close. And I'll upload that for members. So I'm going to give it a shot. Look for that this afternoon, because it's pretty amazing technology, and it's going to be if I can get it to work, it'll be a really cool video, really fun video to share. We have a super chat from Mr. Andrew B. Thank you, brother. I sure do appreciate that. Thank you for your generosity. And Question Tree, shout out to you, a double Loctite member. Goodness. Yeah, South Jersey's right. The runtime is a lot better. It's just not. It needs to be about an hour. It needs to be an hour. So that's always the problem. You know, it's when the drone, I was kind of an early adopter with the drones, and what I have seen, it's a perfect example of a new technology coming online that the government doesn't want you to have. When those first drones came out, even the DJI drones, and the DJI drones had, more regulations and rules and things than the other ones did. But the first few generations, man, it was the Wild West. There were no caps on elevation. There were no caps on distance. You could basically do anything. And every time I update the controller, update the drone, there just seems to be more restrictions, more rules, where it pulls the autonomy away from you, and the drone actually just won't do things. Now, this may be good and bad, but what are they scared of? What are they hiding, and what are they scared of? Whenever the government clamps down on something, and they'll always say, oh, it's for my safety. It's never for my safety. It's that they want access to the technology, but they don't want Goy to have it. They want you to be able to land just in poverty and ignorance. Have I been to Kentucky? I have not been to Kentucky. It's one of the few states I have not been to. I don't know much about it. I think about KFC, the Colonel. I had someone that nominated me for a Kentucky Colonel a few years ago, but I didn't really have any interest in that. I was always very curious to find out that was it the KFC Colonel Sanders, he wasn't a colonel. He was just a Kentucky colonel. KFC, you know what KFC stands for, though, right? Killing folks continuous. Don't be eating that garbage. My goodness. Can you imagine how those chickens are treated, how they're raised? And you think maybe some of the other places are better than KFC? Go online right now and pull up the ingredients list for Chick-fil-A sandwich. We all love it. It's delicious. Is there a better chicken sandwich than that? Why do they need to put all those ingredients in there? I tell you, beloved, what you put into your body, you are under attack we are all under attack from so many venues, from food to media to our water. I wonder sometimes if the very clothing that we put on doesn't affect us in a negative way if we're not very deliberate about what we wear. But why do so many ingredients need to be in those products? Yeah, I don't know. Too much salt? Yeah, I don't know. Is the stream audio bad? Changed up a couple things right here. Let me boost it a little bit. I bumped it up a little bit. How's that? The feds are interfering. KFC is not good yet. Yeah, I boosted the audio up. Should be a little bit better. What is the best axe? It's like asking, what is the best car? It depends. Are you a college student or are you an excavating contractor? It really depends. I don't know that there is one best axe. There's maybe the best all around. I think that would probably answer the question. The best all around for just the common man. Let's say you're not a forestry guy. Maybe you don't even live anywhere near a forest. Maybe you burn a little bit of firewood, camping and such, so you want to have an axe on hand. And I think it's a great idea. An axe is a real good utility tool. That's why the fire department always has that in the rotation of their go-to tools. When you open up the tool bed on the side of your engine, you're always going to have an axe. Tradition. A little bit different axe than we have, but nonetheless the same thing. An axe is important because you can chop through anything pretty much with an axe. Unless it's like really hardened steel, you can chop through. Like, you just go try to get into a modern car without any tools. Let's say that you've got something inside, the car's running, you need to break in. Have you tried breaking modern glass? If you don't have something with a real focus point on it, like a glass breaker or a carbide tip knife, you're not going to break that glass. You can throw rocks at it. You can kick it. There's a lot of videos, guys. You can't get into them. One little trick you can do, and it probably doesn't really, it's not appropriate. It's not going to be really that useful anymore. But what we learned to do in Fire Academy was you can break an antenna off a vehicle. If any antenna that has the little metal ball on it, like the old trucks, and I don't know. New cars, everything's so different now. But if you can find a car around, let's say you're in the city and you need to get into a glass window, break off one of those antennas, and if you can slap it sideways, like go along it and whack it so that you really get that flick from that little ball on the antenna, that will certainly break glass. Also, porcelain. Porcelain is amazing. You wouldn't believe it. You can go watch videos on this, but you can take a spark plug or any type of a piece of porcelain and just break it on the ground, even a plate, a cup, just a little tiny shard. And just from the force of your arm throwing it, you can throw it and that will shatter glass. You might not get it the first time, but second, third throw, it will do it. Even a tiny, tiny piece. And the reason for that is that porcelain, when it shatters, it is so wickedly sharp. And the point is so fine that all of that energy that is produced from throwing even a tiny piece is directed at that point. And that point is so small that the energy will go in there and it'll break that glass, break it right open. We have a super chat from our friend Dustin Pierre. Shout out to you, Dustin. Dustin writes, theology question. What are your thoughts on free will versus predestination? Man, that is a very, very good question. So to get you up to speed, there's two ways of thinking. There's among Christendom, there's a lot of people that will fall on that they think that we are all predestined in some way, that God, before we were even created, God had a plan for us. He had a destiny for us that is completely outside of our control. Now, that is somewhat comforting to some people, but it's also very discouraging to other people. And I would say that if I believe that to be the truth, predestination, I would find that exceedingly discouraging. What that would mean to me was that God had preordained me to fulfill a certain role in life. And regardless of how I felt about that, I had to go forward with that. And I had really no say in it whatsoever. And predestination people will always also go on to say that, they'll say that some people were destined for greatness and some people were destined to be for destruction. A perfect example, Judas Iscariot. Judas Iscariot made Christ. He was numbered among his disciples. The prophecy foretold exactly how Judas would betray Christ before he was even born. That makes a powerful argument that Judas had no choice. How could he have a choice if it was written in the scriptures ultimately what he would do? What would happen if Judas at the last moment, if he had not accepted the pieces of silver, the payment from the high priest, and he would have went right back to Christ and he would have fallen on his face and repented and begged for forgiveness. Forgive me, I've sinned against you. I almost betrayed you. Well, would he have had the option to do that? Was it in his ability? Or was he predestined and it was out of his control and he was simply a vessel designed for destruction? That's a very troubling thing. Now, on the other hand, some people that might be this predestination thing is very troubling to me for that reason. The flip side, a person might say, well, I prefer it this way. I prefer it this way because that means that I have really no say in what goes on. Yes, I go through life and I do make decisions, but ultimately God is in control. He has made me for a particular role in life, and there's nothing that I can do about it. And so I just go on my merry way, just kind of accepting that, knowing that I can't really have any control of my life whatsoever. That's very appealing to a large segment of people because it basically gets them off the hook. They're not really accountable, maybe in the back of their mind, for their actions or what they do. Oh, it's not my fault. I was just predestined to be bad. It's not my fault. I was just predestined to be this particular way. When we study scripture, we have to take line upon line, precept upon precept. We have to take the whole 66 books and use that, our knowledge of that, to answer these difficult questions. In regards to Judas and having a choice or not having a choice, I don't know that I can give you an answer on that. It was written down before he was born. There are many prophecies written down. It was even written down for all of the things that Christ would do, about his temptation and how he would suffer and how he would be betrayed. So Christ have failed? Was he created? These are difficult questions. Was he created to win, to be able to get victory over the adversary? Was there anything that he could have done to have failed? And I think that we know that for sure. So I don't subscribe to this predestination argument. If I did, I don't know that I could have anything to do with it. And what does that say about the character of God, that he would just arbitrarily make one person to be a scumbag or to have a miserable life ahead of him and another person to sail through and to go easily? God says he's no respecter of persons. And if I thought for a moment that he just arbitrarily chose favorites, I don't think I could serve a God like that. I couldn't have anything to do with it. I would need to know why. The universe has to make sense. The world has to make sense. We have been made and created in the image of God. The way that we think, of course, our thoughts and our actions and our emotions are tainted heavily by sin. We are far, far from the creatures that God created us to be in Eden. However, we still retain many of these things. The good book tells us that God has written his law upon our hearts. Even though we live in this world of sin and we're separated from God, he hasn't left us. He hasn't abandoned us. He's written his law upon our hearts. We know instinctively what's the difference between right and the difference between wrong. And that goes across all cultures. Even cultures, I would make the argument, even cultures that have not been exposed to Christianity still share, by and large, of course, there are always outliers, by and large, we share the same values. Even remote tribes and wherever, Native Americans, Africa, have always understood there's a right way to do things. It's wrong instinctively, inherently, culturally to kill your parents. It's wrong to kill your children. It's wrong to eat them, right? It's wrong. You can't just go and have any woman that you want. There needs to be a procedure. Now that the procedure may vary, and some cultures may practice polygamy and some may not. The person might, well, you say this, but what about all of the harems, and what about all these warlords that take these concubines and all these? Yes, I understand circumstances dictate. However, all cultures, as far as I understand, you can't just go and have any woman you want. You can't go up to the king's woman, and have her. There are things that are done a certain way. So we all share this. So, I think it's a powerful testimony that God's law has been written upon everyone's heart, regardless of your religion, regardless of where you grew up. Predestination. Yeah. There's a scripture that just comes to mind, and that a lot of people that believe in predestination, that basically saying that God has a role for you and you don't have any control in that, will point to the vessel. God talks about making vessels, one for honor and one for dishonor. Maybe the comparison of two water pots. One water pot is made to hold pure water for the feeding and the caretaking of the family. The other pot is made for a bedpan, right? To hold, that's basically the analogy. Is one better than the other because it was made for a particular purpose? I don't know. I don't know that I can answer this. And to be honest with you, I haven't. It's been so long since I've actually went in and studied this particular topic, predestination, and before I go any further with this, I would rather be quoting from Scripture. So again, add it to my list of another thing to brush up on this weekend. I don't know. I don't think so. I think the free will is so important to God. He demonstrates free will, us having the ability to choose, is everything. What God does not want is automatons. We've discussed this many times before. If you had the ability to create in your own image, let's say that you could create perfect facsimiles or drones or clones of yourself, and you could program what they think and what they say, and you could program them to be very nice to you and to come up to you 5 times a day and tell you, "Oh, Creator, I love you so much. You are so smart and handsome and tall, and I just think the world of you." If you'd program something to do that, and it just came in on cue and did that every day, would you be edified? Would that stand in the place of genuine love? It wouldn't. It wouldn't mean anything. You would know in the back of your mind that you told it to say that. It's not doing it because it wants to. It's doing it because it was programmed to do so. Is there any satisfaction in that? Why is one of the best things in the world when your little girl, your little boy comes and on their own accord, because they want to, throws their arms around you, squeezes you. Daddy, I love you. Papa, I love you. I mean, it warms the heart. And the reason why it warms the heart is because this little person chose to do that. They didn't have to do it. You could have cajoled them. You could threaten them. Well, I want you to come here every day, sit on my lap, and tell me how much you love me, but it wouldn't have any value. It only has value if it's uncoerced. The reason why Lucifer has allowed, the adversary is allowed to still exist. We go way, way back to the beginning. There was a war in heaven. The adversary questioned God's authority. First time ever. No one had ever questioned before. And so convincing was his question in the kingdom that he convinced 1/3 of God's children to side with him. And the good book tells us there was a war in heaven. 1/3 of God's heavenly creatures actively tried to destroy him, with the leadership of Lucifer. Well, they were defeated, cast out of heaven, but not destroyed. Why? The free will argument. I hate to keep going over the same ground, but this is an important thing, and there's more people that come in, and so I'll just do it. Do you think of the 2/3 that remained, there were some that were maybe on the fence? Had God destroyed Lucifer and the rebels, he would have eradicated the sin problem, indeed. But what about the onlooking universe? What do they see? Oh, I see how it is. Anyone who questions God, he just makes them disappear. So how is everyone serving him now? They're serving out of fear. If I don't toe the line, if I don't do or say what in the third of my brothers. No, God didn't do that. He had to let them live. He had to let them live so that all of the onlooking universe, sometimes we get bogged down with this, or we get very small-minded and think that this whole salvation plan, this Bible and this Christianity, this religion, that this all is about us and our particular problems. We get this little tiny microscopic view. Oh, God is mean to me, and not looking at the big picture. Let's zoom way, way out to the beginning of time. What about the onlooking universe? Now, we know we have a pretty good indicator from the book of Job that we're not the only thing that God has ever created. We get the impression that we may be the only world that God has created that has fallen. So there was a massive, who knows, maybe innumerable amount of created beings, universes, worlds that were all looking on this rebellion. Of course you would look on. This is the capital of the universe. This is the creator. People are going to be interested in what's happening. We have also an insight from the book of Job that there seems to be a council. I don't know if it's annual or how often it happens, but it seems that representatives from other worlds or what other creatures or whatever God has created as other children come together. And even the most astonishing thing is that even the adversary has access to this council, to this group. Because we have in the book of Job, the adversary, Lucifer, shows up and God speaks to him. Where have you been? What have you been doing? And the devil answers. So it seems that he has the ability to travel from this world even to the throne of God, back and forth. God has not limited his access, it seems to me. So why? The reason why, I think, is that there were a lot of people that maybe were on the fence about this. Was Lucifer right? Is God telling the truth? Rather than destroy him and scare everyone to death and now take away all their freedom, now they're not able to serve God freely out of their own hearts, wants, or their own desires, but they do it out of fear. That's what God does not want. That's not how he wants to run his government. So that in itself right there tells us a lot about the character of God, that even though he's omnipotent and can speak matter into existence, can you imagine given one of us, you, me, given us just a tiny bit of power like that, would you be a benevolent God? Would you be able to put the wants and needs of these weak, limited creatures above your own? Or would you forget about them, lose sight on them, and think, well, I'm in charge and I can do this and I'll do what I want? We know power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. But God seems to be immune from this, even though he's the buck stops with him. He's the head honcho. And a rebellion came into his midst. His own children, his own throne, a group trying to overthrow him, his own created beings. Did he exercised restraint? Why? Well, that's what we're getting into, free will. I believe the reason why the adversary is left to be here, to act out his plan, to act out, to set up his kingdom as he sees fit, is so that we can see a contrast between the two. God, I believe, has given the adversary, we're told over and over again, he's the ruler of this world. He has special access. He has the ability to even to show up as an angel of light, to deceive people. He can show up however he wants to. He has a tremendous amount of ability, of leeway, but only so much. I think the reason for all of this is that when Christ returns, when God says, it's finished, this is enough, he will hold the two examples of his leadership and the leadership of the adversary and all of the heartache and war and murder and destruction that he has caused. He'll hold it up for everyone to see. The evidence will be clear for everyone to determine on their own who is just and who is the liar and who is telling the truth. And everyone, from the onlooking universe that never fell, to those of us that remain, to those of us, to anyone who's been involved, will come to the agreement that God was just in his decision. And that when he finally puts an end to the sin problem, when he puts an end to the liar and the false prophet and the adversary himself, when he throws them into the bottomless pit, then the question will be, it will never have to be answered again. We will know. Never again will rebellion come up in the kingdom, because if anyone were to bring up the questions that the adversary did originally, we'll simply be able to point to, well, here is the written record. You may be even able to go into the museum, open up the book of life, and see for yourself what was the ultimate result of the adversary and his government, of selfishness, of me. It will watch a world that came to a grinding halt. The level of depravity and cruelty and law breaking and just viciousness will be the fruit of the adversary's government. Yeah. Dustin, that was a long answer to your question. I got to go back and look into that. I'll be doing some more reading on the plane, and we can talk more on this predestination. I hate to answer questions with my think so's. We're only safe if we can go and use scripture to answer these questions. And I just am not in a position to answer that right now. We have a super chat from the Question Tree. Question Tree writes, as someone who was inspired by your insight of going into electrical engineering, what are some of the starter tools I should have before pursuing it? Now, that I don't know. I don't know exactly. When you say electrical engineering, I don't know exactly what that means. Is that just a broad umbrella term for individual disciplines? The only thing, like if you're talking about like some real electricians or electrical engineers that are doing really sophisticated work with low voltage or data farms, I'm at a loss. I wouldn't even know. I've never been in one. I don't know what those guys use or really what they do. If you're talking about what I do know would be commercial and residential electricians, as well as maybe some maintenance guys and power pole guys. So I guess it depends where you're working and what you're doing. Some of the places you're going to go as an apprentice, I think maybe many of the places you're going to go as an apprentice, if you're working like on bigger stuff, commercial, I doubt that you're going to even probably, I don't know if you're going to have your own tools at first. That I'm not aware of. Most of those things probably be supplied. I would imagine also if you get into as a lineman, a guy that works, bucket truck outside, the power poles, getting the power back online, their stuff is very specialized in large, big things for power. I would imagine that most of that stuff is also provided by the company. Maybe guys have their own Kleins or Dykes or their basic tools, but I'm not really sure on that. But really, as far as an electrician goes, if you're going to be doing electrical work and you're not working for a company, I would imagine where I would start is just with the small hand tool, the basic tools, the things that you're going to be using for roughing a house in, the things that you're going to be using for setting a finish, which is going to be your basics. Like a fluke, you're going to want to get a good fluke electrical tester so you can see if you're working on 120 or 240 and polarity and all that stuff. You're going to need Klein, of course, is the supplier for tools for most of the electrical guys. The electrical guys, they seem to like Klein tools a lot. So go to Klein, see if they have a starter kit. Snap-on has a really good program where if you're a new mechanic and you don't know where to start and you can go to their site and they have basically put together starter kits, which through years and years of experience, guys have determined if you got to start with something, these are going to be the basics, what you need. Your basic wrenches and screwdrivers and sockets. You're not going to get into real specialty or exotic things. You're going to have a good set, an all-around set that's going to serve you well, and then you add to that set. If Klein had something like that, you might look into that, and that would be a better indicator than me. Go on their site. Do they have recommendations, recommended tools for starters? Better than me asking me if you know your particular field or what you're doing. Guys like to talk about their work, and there's going to be YouTube videos on there. You could easily search, for example, if you were a mechanic starting, I'll bet I could find on YouTube some videos of guys put up, hey, should be your starter set. This is where I would start. You can spend money here, maybe a little bit less here. This is what I did. This is what I would do if I had it to do over again. So take advantage of those resources. Just find guys that are in your trade. But as far as tools for electrical engineering, I don't know exactly what that means. It's just too broad for me. But look at what you're doing. Electricians, when they're starting, they're drilling holes. They drill a lot of holes. If you're working with wood, your commercial guy or your residential guys, so you're going to want to have a hole hog and some really good bits to do that. Once you get your holes drilled, then you're going to be running wire. So what do you need to run wire? You're going to need good cutters, some good Klein cutters and wire strippers, that sort of thing. And then the other part of it's going to be diagnosing, fixing problems, remodels. Why is this breaker tripping? What is this voltage? Do I have enough amperage to run this particular appliance? You're going to need some sort of diagnostic equipment. And that could be ranged broadly or whatever you're doing. So the hole drilling, the wire stripping and cutting, and the diagnostic, I guess, and then you need a way to carry stuff around. So are you going to do a tool belt? Are you going to do a bucket? Are you going to do a satchel? Talk to the guys, see what they do. You don't want to be the only guy showing up with a tool belt when no one uses tool belts. They do things for a reason. And as an apprentice, just because you watch YouTube videos and think you know everything, it doesn't mean that you do. The best thing you can do is to keep your mouth shut and your ears open. Before you make an investment in a lot of tools, or you may purchase things that you don't need or the wrong things, I know you want to be proactive. You want to show up ready to work and make a good impression. I get that. There may be a place for that, but just go and work for a while, see what the guys are using, ask questions, and then you'll know that you're making the right purchase. Yeah. You're like me. I mean, I'm the same way. When you get into something, you try to get all the information you can, research, and you want to go out and get all the stuff. And many times that I've done that, probably more than half the times, I end up getting the wrong stuff because I just didn't know. I thought I knew, or I listened to the wrong guy, listen to the right guy. So hold off, save your money, go figure it out, talk to people, and then you can make your purchases. Buy your tools, buy the best tools you can afford, and you'll always be money ahead. But one thing you can buy right now before you start is a good pair of boots. Get yourself a good pair of boots. Get a pair of JKs, get a pair of Nicks, get a pair of Whites, Westcos. There's a lot of good ones out there. If your boots are not $500 or better, then they're not good enough. That's just the hard truth of the matter. You get what you pay for. There's a lot of steps that go into creating boots. And if you want them done right, and you want them to last, rebuildable, if you want to buy a pair of boots that you'll have for 30, 40 years, then that's what you do. Thank you, Question Tree, and congratulations, man. That was very wise of you to get into electrical trades. You're going to reap the rewards of that. If I had to advise someone, college or a good trade like that, electrical engineering, journeyman, lineman, no question. Unless you just have a burning in your bosom to have a specialty field like architecture, engineering, and you need that stamp, the law, medicine. But go look at medicine right now. Go look at that it is. There's a lot of doctors leaving. There's a lot of problems in it right now. There's a lot of people unhappy. And I wonder sometimes, and I'm speaking out of turn here, someone that's not been through medical school or such, but I have a lot of friends that are doctors. One of my good friends that I ride with is a surgeon, and he's been incredibly intelligent, well-trained guy, amazing education. And he says the amount of information and this is coming from a guy that's in the top 1% of intelligence in the world. The amount of information that we had to process through medical school was ridiculous. And it's not a good, according to him, he said, that's not a good way to educate. It's just too much. All you do is memorize a little bit, that little bit you need to pass an exam at the time, and then you drop it, forget it, and move on to the next thing. I don't know what the solution is, but one thing that is interesting, that I'm starting to see, and again, I'm speaking about an industry that I know almost nothing about. I'm just speaking of what I see going on. We have private medical insurance that we pay for, and it's expensive. We've got it down a little bit. We went with a co-op that's a lot better now, but before, for years and years in the old place, our health insurance for our family, I had to pay for out of my own pocket, was about $1,300. I think it was $1,375 a month. That's what, 15 grand a year. So that's what's the average income? It's probably like a fourth of average income would go to healthcare. Now, this wasn't healthcare that I could use. Really, we had a massive deductible, way too much, where you could actually go and do anything. You use it for, unless it was it was basic catastrophic coverage. $1,300 a month, $1,370 for every month. That's crazy. That's a scam. People have been able to pay it for a while, but for many years now, there are people that have just dropped it and are just going through life without health coverage. There are doctors, I'm starting to see it. We have, it actually operates right here in our area, that are just independent, that don't take Medicare, don't take health insurance or any of this, that are unplugged from the corrupt system, and have set up a small doctor's office, and it's pay as you go. And we've been over there. It's just a mile from here, the local clinic. We've been over there for many different things, little cuts and bruises on the kids and broken fingers and getting a stitch, or you got a weird bump somewhere. I wouldn't say we use it all the time, but if there's a concern, we'll go there. and you get the exam. You have a top-notch doctor and nurse, and you can pay for it. And if you can't pay for it, he'll let you make a few payments. But the payments are, but when I'm saying you pay for it, it's not expensive. I think the last time we took the sweet loaf there, it was like 35, $50. And then also, if you come back for a second visit, that's also covered in the initial cost. So do you have the ability to do everything? Are you going to get a CAT scan and all of this high technology? No, of course not. But that's not typically what you need. You just usually dealing with bad bee sting or a reaction or an injury of some sort or a broken leg. All of that, some stitches, all that stuff can be sorted out and done, no problem, for at the local clinic, and it's a price that a normal person can pay for. And the doctor is not living in a $10 million home. He's just part of the community, just like everyone else. And it's wonderful. It's a wonderful thing to have access to that most people don't. And that's what we're going to have to, I think that's what we're going to see in the future. Who can pay these medical expenses? It's deplorable. Yeah, we have money to send hundreds of millions of dollars of bombing innocent brown people all over the country. Money to spare on all these exotic weaponry and these foreign bases and all of this stuff and all of this black budget and all that. And yet we can't take care of our own people. You have to be a fool to be still voting in these national elections. It seems to me, to actually think, oh, we'll get him. If we could just get our guy in, we'll get him this time. We just get those Democrats out of there. Everything will be fine. Goodness, brother, the one hand washes the other. Your federal government doesn't give a hoot about you. Your local government doesn't give a hoot about you. Do you know what they care about? They care about protecting their jobs and their careers. They care about protecting government. And anything and everything becomes a threat to it. And that even means the American people. The way forward, I think, beloved, is do not comply. Do not participate and do not comply. Don't be involved in their dialogue. Don't listen to their rules. They can pass legislation. They can say this, they can say that. We're not going to comply. You go up there in Olympia and you make all of the gun ban rules and all the laws that you want. We don't care. Washington, you can go legislation on braces and illegal this and illegal that. We don't care. We're not participating. We're not doing it. It would take not everyone, but just a very small segment of society to not participate before the enforcement arm, which are the blue-pilled pig cops of the government, would no longer be effective. When they're stretched so thin, they can no longer confiscate, they can no longer put in jails, they can't build jails fast enough for all the people that are breaking the law, the whole thing, it will have to change. And that's when they'll go underground and just drop a bomb on top of all of us. We have we have a super chat from Quebec Patriot, who writes, what do you think about the flat earth theory? Arctic firmament, 2 bodies of water? I thought those people were crazy not too long ago. But a couple things that seem curious to me. First off, I do not believe everything that NASA tells us. It seems to me, I've watched enough footage. I've looked at lunar landers. I've been to the Smithsonian. I've been to the Kennedy Space Centers. I've looked at all these things, saw it with my own eye. I'm not buying all of that. And then I look at the budget, how much money runs through NASA, and then I question, what are they actually doing with all of that? And what have they accomplished since the alleged moon landing, the 60s? How have they made our life better? If we were putting in, if we, as a family, if we were contributing big portion of our family GDP or our revenue, income, resources to a particular thing, we would want to see results back. If we were putting a lot of money into something, working towards something, and it was not panning out, a business that was actually losing money instead of making money, it was dragging the family down, we would cut that off. We wouldn't continue to fund that. And yet, look at the money. How much money have we dumped into NASA from its inception? If we could even find the number, I don't believe that we could even know. We wouldn't even be able to find the truth. What have we received? How's that benefited the people? I would say question everything that NASA has told us to be true. That's what I would say. What the truth is, I don't know, but I can tell you this. Either way, it wouldn't surprise me. One thing that's very troubling, this is someone that, so I used to work with, how would I call it? With grade, a lot of elevations, straight lines, grade lasers. Now a grade laser, and this is the reason for this, is that I used to install sewer mains and water mains, but primarily sewer mains. Sewer mains were important because they have to be on a perfect grade, meaning it's gravity, they have to drain. So if you look on the street, you'll see manholes, right? Manholes, the manhole covers. Do you know why they put manholes in? You put a manhole in anytime that you need to change direction of a pipe or a particular length of run. If you're going to be putting, let's say you've got a 12-inch pipe, right? And it's running 10 feet under the ground, and it's carrying sewer away from the suburb into the water treatment plant. Now, there are some places that have pump stations and pump this in extremely flat locations. But if you live up in the mountains and there's a lot of elevation, the engineers design it in a way that everything gravity feeds. It's always better to have a gravity feed system than a pump system, a lot less power, maintenance, and expense. So I used to put these systems in, long runs of pipe, and they had to be on perfect grade, perfect percentage. And this percentage was, we were able to achieve this with what they called a grade laser. It's a small unit about this big around, about so long, and it shot a very powerful laser beam, very straight, and it would shoot perfectly flat. And then you would dial in the percentage, and then you would put a target in the pipe, and as each stick of pipe, you conform it to this laser, and that way, when you get to the end, you have a perfect straight run. And the reason being, for the manholes, so to back up a little bit, is whenever you need to change direction, you never put a fitting, like a 45, 22 and a half. You never put that in a sewer pipe. You put a manhole in, and then you cut there. So that's what they're for. That way you can get in. If you ever have a clog or a break or anything like that, you can clean between the two. You have an ability to get down there and do that. Well, shooting grade lasers, we used to play with those and elevation and stuff. And those lasers would shoot a long way. One thing that I noticed, and I also noticed with surveying, and engineers will tell you this as well, when you're doing very, very long runs, bridge spans, railroads, even road beds, it's known, they tell us that they know the circumference of the earth, and they also have worked out the math that if you go 1 mile to the north, you could expect, because of the curvature of the earth, you can expect it to drop, right? It's rolling away from you, and you'd have to continue to compensate. That would mean that if you were doing a transatlantic flight from New York to London, the pilot would essentially have to, he's flying here, he would have to constantly be making corrections, because if he didn't, he would just get higher and higher. He's flying a straight line. He's got the artificial horizon, the instrument. He's flying a straight line, and the earth is falling away. Just like this morning, I was flying my drone and up to the north, and as the mountain climbs up, I have to keep compensating the drone, because if I don't, I'll just run into the tree, right? I have to keep compensating. Well, if you talk to pilots, and I've talked to many of them about this, they'll tell you that they don't compensate for that, and that they've never heard that or never considered it. And then I talk to engineers that run miles and miles of train track or highway, or canal builders are even more important because water finds it's flat, right? A road can kind of follow the contour. And I ask them, do you compensate for the curvature of the earth? And they look at you like you have two heads. No, of course not. So that's a little bit sus, wouldn't you say? If you're just going to put your thinking cap on, how are you going to explain that away? So there's a lot of difficulties. There's a lot of problems with all of these things. And then why is NASA uploading footage from the International Space Station of so-called astronauts up there that are clearly not in space? They're dropping things. There's gravity in the space station. They're dropping things. There's many, many videos you can watch it where they mess up. They'll drop a pen or something and it falls right to the ground, clanks on the ground. While you have a woman standing there next to her with fake hair, put up that's not moving. If you are in true zero gravity, you can see the effects of hair in true zero gravity. Those planes that they have that go up and they do the stall and then they free fall. We've all seen it, and you can rent these things and they use it for military training, and people are inside and floating around and having a good time, right? Doing all that. Look at the hair. The hair, it looks like it's underwater. It's completely in free fall, just flowing and moving around. Women that have the longer hair, same thing is in water. Very, very similar to that. And yet you have NASA showing us alleged space station, International Space Station photos. Do you have the hair doing that? No, you have a static hair put up in a ridiculous, I don't know if it's got a wire in it or what have you. I mean, it's obvious. Why are they doing this? Why are they lying to us? Why are they stealing our money? Taxation is theft. Stealing our money and giving us this dog and pony show. And all these people, whenever you bring anything up like this, here comes everyone out of the woodwork, space denier, flat earther, conspiracy theorists, to staunch the argument. But we're not about it. I don't know, beloved. I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me, but I don't believe them. I don't trust the government. I think pretty much take the opposite of what they say and you'd be closer to the truth. And when they give you numbers, quadruple them. If they're good numbers, then they're 75% worse, or 400% worse. If it's good, if it's good numbers, just take the opposite, and you'd be pretty well served. Thank you, Quebec Patriot. I think you and I both know the truth, huh? We have to be careful in these YouTube areas here. We have a super chat from Steve Kozlowski. Shout out to you, Steve. Welcome. Steve writes, he used to work for a large tech company installing large data center systems. Electricians used to work 24/7, no matter what. All used Knipex. Well, there you have it. You have it from the horse's mouth. Knipex, I haven't worked around those guys, those data guys, but there you have it. Yeah, and Klein makes good tools as well. Klein seems to be maybe a little bit towards the electrician type, seems to me anyway. Andrew K says, do I have a full AR parts list put together? I'd like to make sure I have everything purchased before the new laws take into effect. Goodness, I gotta get that for you, Andrew. Thank you for reminding me. I'll bump that up to the top. I have not done it per se, but I will do it for the members. We gotta do our next installment. I got everything in my bottom drawer. I haven't touched it since the last video we did. We have a super chat from Misty Bottoms. Misty Bottoms writes, can't believe I made it live. Bought my first new excavator, a Cato 35. That's a good machine. HD, handy little machine. Appreciate you, sir. Yeah, boy, that's it. Having a little mini excavator, that's money in the bank right there. What a great thing to have, too. I always looked at that as a great fallback position. It is incredible. I've had my my machines. We're getting ready to do a project over on the other side. So we've got everything staged over there. So they're sitting out by the road where everyone can see them. It's always surprises me how many people stop by or find us, try to contact us through neighbors and stuff that want to hire it out. Hey, I've got some, would you come? I've got some work I need done. Can you come and work for half a day? days. Can you move a dirt pile? Can you dig up some stumps? And that's not even soliciting business. That's just, and I'm not for hire. I'm not an excavating contractor. I'd go out and help a neighbor or a friend, do something like that, but I'm not going to go charge anyone to do it. But I thought that was interesting, that just having the thing right there, it wants to make money for you. So, the way I look at things with inflation and digital currency and the heavy-handedness methods that banks are taking towards people, and how difficult they're making it to get your money out. If you think it's easy to get your money out of the bank, go to your bank and try to take out $10,000, and you're going to be shocked. You won't be able to get it. You'll have to make an appointment a week later. You'll have to order cash, and the reason why, in my opinion, that they're going so hard to this digital currency is that once they have digital currency, then they can shut you off. Then they control you. If you have access to barter goods that you can trade or barter, or even cash, gold, silver, unless they come and physically remove it from you, take it out of your pockets, they don't have any control over you. You can do with it what you want. But let's say we go to full digital, well, then that's a whole nother deal. You don't say the right thing, you don't do the right thing, your credit score isn't high enough, they just turn it off or make it go away. And you think that that's far-fetched? Go talk to the people in California that have accepted these smart meters. Do you know in California that when the power grid is stressed on the hot days, that they have the ability, and they're doing this. This is not science fiction. They're changing the thermostats, and you don't have any control on it. They're turning the thermostats up to the 80s when it gets hot, instead of down in the 70s, and you don't have control over it. That's a harbinger of things to come, beloved. They can control the temperature of your home. Do you think they won't control your bank account when you don't toe the line? Do you think that they'll let you buy and sell? Have you seen the stores in the inner city that everything now is behind glass? I watched a video of a high-end grocery store, one of the New Seasons type of grocery stores, where you have to sign in, you have to go through security gates no less than 3 or 4 times with an access key code before you can even get in the store to purchase food that you need to survive. Now they'll say, well, yeah, this is done in an extreme situation in inner city to control theft and that sort of thing. That may or may not be true, but all of this technology will be implemented. It'll be implemented so that they'll have control over everything. The smart meter will control your house. You want to have water, you want to have heat, you want to have natural gas, you want to have internet. All that will be, someone will be able to control that remotely. So they'll control that. They'll control your vehicle. They're actually, I think Ford even has the technology where, if they haven't implemented it already, where you're late on your payments. In the past, they would send the repo man come and take your car. Not anymore. The cars will actually drive back to the dealership in the middle of the night autonomously because you didn't make your payment, or the system thinks that you didn't make your payment. This will happen. This is where all this is going. So the more of this we accept, the smart home, the smart car, the digital currency, you're giving away your autonomy for convenience. Because the good book tells us, in God's people from the rest of the world, the lost, they will, one thing that will differentiate them is they won't have the ability to buy or sell. Why do you think God is moving his people to become more self-reliant? Why do you think God is pulling his people out of Babylon, out of the cities? Because he's getting them ready. There come a time where all of the conveniences that you've enjoyed, if you don't toe the line, these will be removed from you. Just like they were removed from you during COVID. That was a test run to see what is the psychology of the people. How much will they put up with? How much abuse will they take before they try to dig us out our holes? Misty Bottoms, shout out to you, man. Good job on the excavator. Speed main battle toaster. Coffee? I don't know. I had coffee this morning. Thank you, brother. And Mr. Overton says, don't forget to reply. Don't forget to rely is to comply. Yeah, I hadn't heard that before, but that's very true. To rely is to comply. Yeah, that's what it is. It's amazing. You know, the sad thing is that there's going to be a lot of folks that will know better than to comply, but that it will be more important to them to maintain the status quo, to be able to have access to the things that they've always accessed, the conveniences. It'll be more important to have that than to trust and follow God, and they'll make a decision. Can you imagine when Christ returns and that person looks up and realizes the side that they chose was wrong, that they chose the convenience, the things of this world over the infinite joy in eternal life that comes with trusting God? That's not a small thing. You know, that's something that's a very troubling prophecy, to not be able to buy and sell in our economy. You know, maybe there are cultures where that wouldn't be so important, that they're not based around the financial system, they're not based around consumerism. But for us Americans in this culture, for us to be cut off, not have access to the grocery stores, and to be able to resupply fuel, food, clothing, there's very few of us that will be able to survive that. There are many people that will maybe try it, that the hardship would just be too great, and they'll comply. We have a super chat from Red Eagle Whiskey. Shout out to you, brother. Thank you for your generosity. Red Eagle writes, very black-pilled, tired of these commies fleeing homes to destroy mine and not learn from their mistakes. Been trying to buy a home for 4 years now. At this point, even if I got one, I'm going to be surrounded by those I despised. Yeah, that's really tough, especially that's really that would really be a hard pill to swallow if you found that your home where you grew up, let's say you're second, third generation Idahoan, Oregonian, Washingtonian, your family grew up in an area, you're just getting started, you want to buy a piece of land, you want to build a home, but people from out of the country, out of the state, have come in and risen, the prices have all risen, doubled and tripled. There's a lot of communities like that where the very people that are from that area, that grew up there, that have family in the area, can't afford to live there. Happens right here. Prices in this valley are outrageous, outrageous. And there are a lot of complaints from young families, local people, kids returning that want to raise their families here that can't get a foothold. No housing. And if there is housing, it's unless you have $1 million, you can't afford or can't buy anything. And there's a lot of resentment towards the people that come in and have the ability to do that. One thing I think that all of us should consider that are moving into communities like that, let's say, I don't blame anyone for doing that. Everyone has the right to improve their life. Every Californian in this country, they have to go and live in another state. And if they want to go to live in northern Idaho, then they have the right to do that. Where they fall, where they're in error, is when they bring their politics. Just like Red Eagle was saying, when they bring their politics and the place that they fled because it was so unlivable, that they now are repeating that and destroying the community that they were seeking refuge. You can come into a community and you can turn the tables upside down. You can bring your leftist views, you can bring your politics, you can get involved with local school board, and people do, especially women. Many women have too much time on their hands, and especially women that don't have children. You know, there's a nurturing element of women that they need to nurture, and they need to have something, a cause. That's why single white women are so insufferable. Their cause is the Black community. That's their children. They didn't have their own children, so that's their children. It's got to be patronizing, and if I was a black man or black person, I would find that exceedingly offensive. Like, who are you to come in here and to think that you know what my community needs, you know? But that's what they do, because they've got too much time on their hands. So a lot of these changes and a lot of these negative things that come in are from busy-bodied women that have no children, and their children become the community or a pet project or the local river or conservation or the school board. You know, we've all seen it, right? It's horrible. You can get away with that now in the rule of law. You can move into a community and you can completely go against the spirit and the traditions and, I guess, and customs of that community. You have the right to do that. Legally, you can do that. But when we get to the point where the rule of law is not always going to be reliable, where the rule of the jungle comes into effect, do you think that the local community that has been kept out of the housing market, that has had to deal with these California politics, do you think that they're going to sit idly by and just eat this? Or do you think that they're going to push back? And what does pushing back look like? Who is going to defend? Let's say you came into a place and are turning it upside down and trying to change it and turning it into California. Who's going to protect you if a group of men decide that they don't want you in their community anymore? They don't like your politics. They don't like what you're doing. And they could actually use your property in that house very well for their own families. Who's going to stop them? Are you going to stop them? So I'm just saying that when you move into these communities, don't push your weight around. Adapt, become, accept their customs, respect the people there. You don't have to be just like them. I'm not talking about being a conformist, but know that if things go bad, are you going to be an enemy to the local people, the people that were born and raised here? Are they going to come and burn your house down? I'm just saying, you can push your weight around as long as there's blue-pilled pigs to enforce your will or to protect your rights. But we may be rapidly reaching a time in our lifetime where you will not have that protection anymore. And you will have to answer for your actions and answer for the things that you've done. That's not a stretch, gentlemen. I mean, just imagine, let's say we're in a situation where things have gone bad and it's kind of every man for itself and the community kind of circles the wagon. And there has been a known troublemaker in the community, a busybody, nosy woman that has caused no end of problem, that has called the building department on dudes, that has harassed kids about skateboarding, etc. A Karen, right? And there's no one to defend her. Do you think that men are going to tolerate that and put up with that nonsense when they don't have to? We only put up with it now because we don't have any choice. But given a choice, we would not tolerate that nonsense. We would not tolerate someone coming into our community and giving us trouble, sicking law enforcement, cops on us, sicking the building department upon us. You can do that with impunity now, but in the future, I think not so much. We will reap what we sow. We have a super chat. Goodness, I'm backing up here. We have a super chat from Austin Gerald. Shout out to you, Austin. Austin writes, lineman or electrons for career path need some help. I don't electrons. I'm guessing electrician. Lineman job is pretty cool. It's going to be a lot more difficult. Definitely a younger man's job. Climbing power poles, up in the middle of the night, storms, almost always working outside. If you like that, a little bit more of a rugged crowd, rugged guys. If you like that sort of thing, that might be for you. Electrician, residential, commercial, typically going to be inside. Not going to be out in the middle of the night, that sort of thing typically. Just going to be a little bit more civilized, a little bit less aggro type of guy in my experience. So maybe if I was a young man, I would probably be more interested in being a lineman. An older guy or a guy that wants to have a little bit more comfort in his work, wants to work inside. If you live in a cold climate, I would say electrician. But both are good. Both are good. And both are going to be, it's going to be good people in both trades. That's one of the best thing about those two trades. The construction trades, there's a lot of scumbags and dirtbags and drug addicts and lowlifes in the construction trades, just like anything commercial, cooking, restaurant, service industry, all of that. That's the problem. And you say, well, fine, I'm not that person and I don't conduct myself that way. You're affected by your environment. And when you're around negative people that are not going anywhere, that do drugs and drink too much and just don't have any motivation, just not inspiring, they're not getting better, then that rubs off on you. And that you have that to look forward to. It's a bad thing to have to get up on Monday morning and to go suffer fools. It's bad enough to have to go out into work and fight for a living in a competitive environment. It's a whole other thing to do it when your coworkers are actively working against you or dragging you down as well. So my choice of trades, I would really want to know what's the quality of people I'll be working with. And when you get into those trades, electrical engineering, lineman, it's skilled enough where not just anyone can do it. And that weeds out a lot of the low-hanging fruit where, you get into your drywalling, insulation, not all, I'm not going to say all, just as a rule, they're not going to be the best dudes always. We have a super chat from PK's Dank Den. Shout out to you. PK writes, "This is why I'm in the garden working and building myself a mobile trailer. I grew up in California. The lefties destroyed this beautiful state." Yeah. And beautiful state it is. California is probably, taken as a whole, is probably the best place in the world. When you talk about like the national parks, like Yosemite, extraordinary. The redwoods, look at the coastline, the Sierras, San Diego, Los Angeles, the perfect climate. Look at the orchards and the nut fields and the agriculture. Oh, I mean, California could just about feed the world if it was ran properly. But that's why there are so many people there. But the problem is you've got California man there, and he is insufferable. Yeah, you got to go. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. We have a super chat from Anarchy Tattoo Studios. Good to see you back. Always good to see Anarchy here, who writes, 2020, after being on the news for refusing to comply, my personal and business Chase accounts were closed. Yeah, this is a regular thing. It was closed to an affiliate. It was closed to an affiliate's of theirs decision. They weren't obligated to disclose more. No, they're not going to tell you anything. You either conform, you toe the line, or you don't participate. You don't get a bank account. You don't get a mortgage. You don't get food. You don't get power. That's they're showing you right now. That's what they're going to do. So what can Proho do about this? Well, that's what we're talking about, right? It's what we've been talking about here forever. It's about having choices. Life is about having choices. Choices with your time, what you do on your time, and where you live and how you live. I don't want to be under the rule and control of a bureaucrat, and I don't think any of you do either. We have a super chat from Jeremy McCook. Shout out to you, Jeremy. Jeremy writes, what is with you mentioning race so much? White women, brown women. This is leftist speech. I'm just using the speech that they use. That's how we stay uncensored. What am I supposed to use, right? What am I supposed to say? Does it matter? We know what we're talking about. Because race matters. Birds of a feather flock together. I mean, we have particular choices and preferences. California. We have a super chat from My125-21252. Shout out to you, brother. Who writes, California moved next to me. A Californians. public school rears its ugly head. Let's start over. Californians, you see, it's your fault as well. Now, I'm not casting stones when it comes to spelling and punctuation, but some of you guys are even worse than I am. Californians moved next to me. Called the cops about my chickens. Always remember, people are one cancer diagnosis from not caring about consequences. That's interesting. Yeah, well, then you have Killdozer. You have Killdozer when you push a man so far that he has nothing left to lose. And that's what we're getting. There's an army, as the left calls them, incels. I don't call them incels. I call them victims of hypergamy and online dating. 80% of the men or so, the unattractive ones, the ones that are not in the top 20%, are having a hard time finding mates right now and giving up. A lot of blackpilling. You know, the most dangerous thing on the planet is a man with nothing to lose. You know, if you were going to, you know, the kamikaze in World War II was so effective, there was really no deterrent to it. If a man was willing to go that hard, to give his own life for a cause, and that cause was trying to destroy a Navy ship, there's very little you can do about that. If an able-bodied man, myself, you, has nothing left to lose and decides to go about decides to do something, whatever that may be. Maybe it's an assassination. Maybe it's a destruction of a building. Well, you know, maybe it's taking down an airline. Whatever criminal may come into a criminal's mind. You're not going to stop that man. You know, if that's his life mission, if it's my life mission to get access to a high-profile person, and I've got time, and I've got the resolve to do it, and I'm smart about it, there's not Secret Service, there's not anything that could prevent a man that's motivated to do that. If you really plan it and you've got the time and the resources to do it, there's nothing that could stop that. In the past, we've had too much to lose. It's you know, you may have been upset or aggravated about a particular thing, or wronged or betrayed, and you had visions in your mind about getting revenge, getting justice. Well, you're not going to do that because there's just too much to lose. The threat of incarceration, losing your job, losing your home, losing your family, losing your freedom is what keeps people on the straight and narrow. It's not, for the most part, I think it's not just the goodness out of people's hearts preventing them from doing dangerous or evil things. It's the consequences. When you no longer have consequences, when you no longer care, when you have an army of these, what they call incels, these young men, disenfranchised, coming up, they look, what do they see? I can't afford a house. I can't get a decent job. The job's paying 15, 16 bucks an hour. I can't even afford to live on that. I got to have roommates. So there's no hope of ever having a home. I can't get a girlfriend because of the dating sites. They won't even look at me because I'm 5'4" and I'm not considered attractive. No hope of having family, no hope of having lands, no hope of having country or home. There's not even the military anymore. Maybe one in the military, he's got the patriotic bone, and yet he's met with a global homo and rainbow this and rainbow that. There's not even that's been taken away from him. What does he have to live for? He's got no country. He's got no family. He's got no woman. He's got no job. He's got no future. Do you think they're all just going to sit in the basement and just eat this turd sandwich? How long? How long before these guys start getting fed up and start taking matters into their own hands and start getting their own justice and start, well, I can't buy a house. Well, if I get together with this group of guys, maybe I'll take my house. I can't afford land. Well, maybe I'll take this land. How long before this happens? Do you think they're all just going to sit around? Do you think all these 20-somethings are just going to sit around with no hope, no dream, no nothing, and nothing is going to happen? That they're not going to rise up? And how many would it take? What happens when a charismatic leader comes up and gets starts to get some structure? I think it's inevitable. If you study history, you'll know it's inevitable. When you oppress a people too much, when you're unfair to them, when you level sanctions on them, restrictions, rules, they could only stand so much. And what do you get? You get a mean Mr. Mustache Man. We have a super chat from Mr. Cameron Wilson. Cameron writes, "Thank you for all your wisdom and life advice, Cody. It's always appreciated from a younger guy like myself. And thank you for talking about your father on the live stream the other week. It helped me tons." Well, I thank you. Thank you for your generosity. I appreciate that. We have a member message from K Bowers 8111. Shout out to you, brother. He writes, "Prayers for a painless financially career move and week-long training. Armed security, completely new venture for me." Yeah. Would you like an idea for a business that would go really well right now? I keep trying to get some local guys around here to start this. Imagine Uber. You have an app. You get on there, the car comes, right? Gives you a ride. Imagine an Uber type of app or app, but the business is armed security on demand when you need it. Your wife, this is to cater to the well-heeled, the more. There's people like Portland, for example, wealthy people that live up in the West Hills that have to come down into the city. These guys are working. Their wives, their trophy wives are stay at home. They need to go out and shop and consume and all these things. Many of them are not comfortable going into town anymore in Portland. The sidewalks are just too gritty, too dangerous. I tell you what, if there was a very simple app where you could go on like, oh, I need to go into town for 4 hours and to stop by Nordstrom's and then pick up the dry cleaning and then stop by New Seasons to pick up my food, right? Where you would get on your app, an armed dude comes and escorts you. I don't know if he drives your car or what have you. You work all that out. I'm the idea guy. I'm not the detail guy. That would be a very good business. And there'd be a lot of demand for that. And I know there are a lot of licenses. I'm assuming there can be a lot of licenses and regulations and trying to get legal carry, for armed security and that sort of thing. I think the solution would be quite simple. Just find a security company, armed security company in your state that's already licensed, that maybe is small. Buy it. They've already got everything established, and then just roll this into your business. Get the online section up, and this would be good. That would be a big money maker right now. And it's only going to grow. And there'd be no shortage of dudes that would sign up for that, and you could pay them very well. I'd pay the dudes really well. I would charge about $100 an hour to the client, and I'd give half of that to my guys. We have from Miguel Gamino. Shout out to you. Welcome, brother. Welcome. Glad to have you here. And from PK's Dank Den, we have another super chat. PK writes, "I just turned 40, single, make $50K a year as a service engineer. That's not enough to own here. It's hard to bottle the rage sometimes." Yeah, bless. Yeah, yeah, bless. Yeah. That sucks, man. To see $50K a year for any dude that has a particular skill or is keeping something running, has a unique ability, is not right. To get up, I see it. I mean, I see guys are uploading videos on TikTok all the time, almost in tears, that family of 4, trying to do the right thing, trying to keep their mother at home, homeschooling, 1 car, cutting corners, saving money, going out and busting their butt day after day after day, just to be going backwards, losing ground, getting behind, having to rely on credit cards to cover problems that when life happens, and you get into this and you just can't get out of it. And what are they supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? You're 45. You're supposed to go back and stop all the income coming in, cut off the supply, and go and retrain on your own dime, on your own dollar. Yeah, some guys can do it. A lot of guys have done it, but it's not easy. So you get yourself stuck. You're in a situation where I got to keep working at this place, obviously earning less than I'm worth, because I can't go anywhere. And then, I mean, guys, you're completely screwed. The businesses have got you by the balls, and then the family court's got you by the balls as well. If you want to get out of your marriage, or that's whatever, then they've got you there too. Now you're drug into family. I mean, you are locked down as a working man with a family that's gotten married through the state, that's receiving a paycheck. You are completely controlled. You are not that much different than an animal in a pen being raised for slaughter. You're being harvested for your abilities. You're being harvested for your talents. You're being taxed to death. Not only are you being taxed with the money that they're pulling out of your account that you have no say over whatsoever, but how many times are you paying taxes on your money? Death taxes. Taxes on gas, taxes on money. You get a little bit of extra and you're taxed again and again on the same money over and over again. If the average man could get a report daily and see how much you actually keep of your own when after everything is said and done, that would cause a revolution. But the fact that it's all kind of confusing and you never really see it on paper, it just keeps you toiling, keeps you grinding. You just hooked up to a treadmill and you just go round and round. And the moment you're not able to do that work, or you're no longer a utility. You can't produce. You can't be farmed for your efforts and your intellect and your intelligence. Then you're thrown out. You can't even go get your teeth fixed because you can't afford the dentist. You deal with and suffer through all sorts of pains and aggravations that could easily be relieved with the amazing technology we have in Western medicine, but you can't because you can't afford it. And yet you go to work over and over again, and people wonder why men are not going back to work. Companies can't figure out why people don't want to come and do this. Got boomers work their whole life greeting at Walmart. Got boomers in their 70s and 80s that are eating dog food. How many years have I paid into Social Security? Am I going to receive that? Been pulling the cart my whole life. Never received anything. The moment I can't pull the cart, do I get to ride? No, I don't get to ride. Just thrown out on the dung heap. Have no allegiance to these people. Have allegiance to your family and your communities. Do what you have to do, but don't give them any extra, and get everything you can from them. We have a super chat from Triple T Tony, who writes, "Hi, Cody. I've been watching you for years. You're one of, if not the best on YouTube. I love the content, proho videos, and short words of it." Thank you, brother. Well, as I'm always fond of saying, the bar is pretty low here. I do appreciate that. And the Proud Canadian. Shout out to you. Proud Canadian says, "Hi, Cody. I've watched your videos about you losing your dad in 2020. I lost my dad and it still hurts. What did you do with your loss? You endure it. You suffer through it and you endure it. That's all you can do." I lost my granddad. It was hard losing my granddad. Same as losing a dad for me. Exact same thing. I'm not wearing it here. I found my granddad's, I don't know, it's been a couple years now. I still have my dad's phone number on my phone. what the thing I guess what really the thing I miss the most. I thought about my dad when I was watching my son who's doing so well at the debate tournament, the national debate tournament where we were just at last weekend. I was so proud of him, just so proud of him. And I wanted, if I would have had a wish at that moment, it would have been just to be able to call and to tell my dad what his grandson had done, to share the accomplishments, to share how proud we were of Jack, and it's a great loss not having that. I just can't even imagine, it would be rough not having, it would be very lonely and rough not having a family, not having someone to share those things with. I just think, like one of the great pleasures, the daily pleasures of life, especially for us men, I think what we like from our women is we want our women to be proud of us. We want our women, we want them to acknowledge and to understand the efforts that we put into providing for them, taking care of them, how much we've sacrificed from our own personal joy and happiness. Many people have, in the making the decision to put your hand to the hard and heavy work of being a husband and father, and being faithful to one woman. That all of these things, all they take a great effort, and they should be celebrated. And when we as men toil and to make these sacrifices, these compromises for 10, 20, 30 years, it's easy to do if we're appreciated. It's easy to do, to go out and to break your body and to work in the hot sun and to go and bring food home for the family, protect and take care of and cherish your wife, when you come home, that she's appreciative of this. That's what gives us the ability to go out and to do it, and to do supernatural, exceedingly difficult things that women just wouldn't be able to do, wouldn't want to do, wouldn't do it if they wanted, couldn't do it if they wanted to do it. And we're happy to do it. But the moment we don't feel that appreciation, and I would say that majority of guys are in this camp, unfortunately, to have to go out and to make these sacrifices, knowing that if they were to walk away, their lives would be so much easier. They would have so much more. They could fulfill the dreams. They could go get a motorcycle, if they didn't have to have all these things. And a lot of guys are waking up to that and realizing, hey, I'm not just a utility. I'm not a beast of burden. I know the Christian faith certainly, and God takes a dim view on divorce. He looks at divorce as not a separation of just two people that want to go their own way. He sees it as almost like the severing of something. Divorce to God would be the equivalent of tearing a leg off. Yeah, there is a situation where you need to amputate a leg, because if you don't, it'll destroy the body. Gangrene, frostbite, those different things, which seems barbaric. Oh, don't cut. How could you cut someone's leg off? Well, you have to have the context. In the context, well, okay, you can agree to, either cut the leg off or he's going to die from blood poisoning, right? There's just some things that need to be done. I don't have a scripture for this. I'm going to go out here on a limb. This is just my think so. But I would say that you would be, many men in some situations would be justified in leaving a woman that is not fulfilling her obligation. If you are fulfilling your obligation, if you're going out and doing what you committed and promised to do, what you, the oath that you took to God, that you've honored this in all way, but your mate is not helping, not respecting, not giving you intimacy, not having a home cleaned and children raised properly and herself taken care of, and she's put on 300 pounds, I think the argument could be made where you would have every right to dissolve this union, a breach of contract, so to speak. I'm getting off on a tangent here. But the point being, we don't ask for a lot. We're pretty simple creatures to keep happy. But one thing we cannot tolerate is not being appreciated and not being respected if we've done everything in our power to earn it. Now, if we're a low-life scumbag, we'd have no claim on receiving respect from anyone. But if we're put our hand to the hard work of marriage, then we deserve, and we've honored it, we've honored our oath, then we deserve respect and not to be taken for granted. We have a super chat. Thank you, Miguel, by the way. We have a super chat from AC who writes, what's a good laser pointer to point at tree limbs? I don't know. Probably the ones for China that are more powerful than what the government allows us to have, if I had to guess. I don't know. I don't even own a laser pointer. I have IR laser pointers, but I don't know. I don't know anything about that. Why do you want to point at tree limbs? Thank you, AC. I don't understand. We have super chat from Dave Goodrich who writes, I lost my wife of 42 years recently. That will really change one's outlook on life. Yeah. I can imagine that. I'll tell you, I came home a day early from Jack's debate tournament. We just had some different flight things going on. But I was home 24 hours before the rest of my family, so I showed up back to the home and it was empty. And I sat in the empty home, no children's voices, all of my son's not there, coming down for breakfast, and my wife there and to sleep beside me and to be my companion and to help me with my day-to-day stuff and preparing food for the family, just everything that makes the house a home. And it was, it's very sad and lonely place. Very sad and lonely place. It'd been some time since I'd been by myself like that, or we really got to picture it. I really thought in my head, God forbid, but if my family never came home, if there was a plane crash or something, and this was my reality, how would that change my life? What would that be like? Can you even imagine? I haven't been married 42 years, and it's got to be much worse for Dave. I'm coming up on my 20th anniversary. Yeah, it's a rough one, man. That's why men don't often live long if they lose their wife, as a rule. I don't mean to drop a black pill on you here, Dave, but a lot of, I think, just heartbreak. You can decide to die. You can die from a broken heart. I don't know if it's going to happen overnight, but you can put yourself in that death spiral of sadness. I hope you have children that you can focus on and give you a reason for getting up every day. Thank you, beloved. I got to shut this down. I got lots of work to do. I will not be here tomorrow. I won't be here through the rest of the week. Mrs. W and I are flying down into LA for VidCon. VidCon happens every year. It's a really good resource. If you are running a YouTube channel or interested in running a YouTube channel, it's worth going down there for. On the industry side, you meet a lot of interesting people, and more so than that, I know, as someone who is a content creator, if you ever run into someone that does what you do and you have a lot to talk about or shares a common interest, you roll up on a guy that's got the same car or truck or motorcycle as you. And Overton was telling me that he had a guy that was waiting for him. He'd ridden his motorcycle somewhere and had parked it outside. It was XR650, and he had a guy waiting for him. I think, if memory serves, I think it was Overton, to come out, because I don't know if he had one or had interest in it or was thinking about it, but it was a common interest between the two of them, and this started a conversation. the same thing with being around other people in this world. As a a solo content creator that lives in a rural area, you never have the ability to talk shop to anyone. There are certain things about this type of work, or what hobby, whatever you want to call it, that is shared with other people that do it. And I very much enjoy being able to sit down with someone who gets it, understands the fun parts of it, the parts that are not so fun, where you can commiserate, you can share ideas, you can collaborate. I very much enjoy that. And I don't have access to anyone like that. Whenever I meet someone, I never meet someone that does what I do. So it's always one-sided. It's me trying to explain, this is what we do. And, they don't, it's not peer-to-peer. Whereas when you go down to VidCon, you're surrounded by people that are doing the same thing that you're doing. But the fascinating part about it is that some of the most interesting people that I met down there, Mrs. W and I, they do things that are completely separate from us. We were at our hotel the last 3 years ago, I guess it was, 4 years, maybe, before COVID. Last time we were down there for VidCon, we had a hotel, and we went down, and there was a swimming pool and a hot tub, and there were a lot of people that come from all over the country to attend this. And there were 3 women that were middle-aged, about Mrs. W's age, that were in the big hot tub there. And we got in there and started visiting with them. Well, they were full-time content creators as well. They did mukbang. This is not anything that I have ever watched or would ever have interest in doing, but we had a lot in common, and we had the nicest time. We sat around there and visited and laughed and got to know each other. We had so much in common because we share the same experience with making content. And even though the format's different. So I think I enjoy that more than anything else. I always come home inspired. I always feel like, I learned some new things, and I'm excited about maybe a new technique or trying something or tweaking this or that. It's always very enjoyable. So that's why we go down there. We have a super chat from Miguel Gamio, who writes, "Hi, Cody. You've taught me a lot. I've been watching you since I was 15. I'm 23 now. I'm an electrician for PGE. Just bought my first Craftsman double bit." PGE, that's good company. Yeah, Portland General Electric, I'm assuming, unless you have a different PGE. But yeah, I had some friends that went in and got jobs right out of high school as linemen for PGE. This would have been in the 80s. And that's been a good job for them. Very good job. Now they're all high up in supervisor positions and drive around in their trucks all day. But yeah, good for you, Miguel. That's a great trade. Good dudes at PGE. Hard work, dangerous work. The storms, getting the power back on. But I have to tell you, I would like to thank you, because you guys don't often get thanks enough, to our linemen. I want to thank you for all of the hard work you do during the storms. We don't take it for granted. And I know that when that power comes on, that it's only because of you guys that happens. So I really appreciate that. All right. Well, thank you, beloved. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Please keep us in your prayers. May God bless you and your family. Please keep Jack in your prayers to be doing his PAC test tomorrow. And then, Lord willing, if he gets through that, he'll go right into his training for his basic firefighter, wildland firefighting. He'll get that training. And then a day later, he'll go into his basic S212 Sawyer. So he'll get his Sawyer certification. And I hope it all goes well, so that he can do well and pray for his safety as well. I am going to, the rest of the day here, I'm going to put together kind of a little saw class for him. Well, another fun thing, Jack is going in with his best friend. They're going in together. So both of the boys asked if we could get a little brush up on the saw class, before the saw class, basic filing, bucking, how to start it. And I thought, I'm happy to do that. So I'm going to put together a couple-hour little basic refresher course for them, so that when those 2 boys show up to their S212 class, that they'll be able to be the top of their class. They're not going to be professionals by any means, but with what they already know, just a little refresher. I'll teach them how to start properly, nomenclature, so they're using the right terms, how to file a saw. That'll distinguish them right there from even most men. Mixed gas, safe bucking techniques, chain selection, etc., and we'll give him some hands-on stuff. And I'll put Jack in his in my U.S. Forest Service hard hat, won't I? Won't I? Thank you, beloved. May God bless you and your families. Please keep us in your prayers. We'll see you guys over on the next stream next week.